Hi there YouTube, I hope you guys enjoyed the crap out of that Ridge Racer gameplay footage. Now I did enhance the graphics a bit. I can show you what it looks like in reality on the real hardware, do a capture of that and show you. And I can also try to enhance the crap, the absolute crap out of the game, and I will be doing so by using a Duckstation, and I'm gonna set the internal resolution scale at 9x, texture filter it by linear, adaptive, downsampling, scaled dithering, perhaps actually true color dithering, so it disables the dithering altogether, widescreen hack, software rendered readbacks, disable interlacing, and all the PGXP except for depth buffer, because that has a very low compatibility. So let's run the Ridge Racer game. And see how that actually works. Okay, so it's the resolution scale has been set to 8x, and I'm just gonna see how this works. It sort of smooths out the graphics. It really looks weird. You can get this game on the PlayStation 5, and it sort of looks like what I did. You can have enhanced graphics and stuff, but you have the wobblies, and it doesn't look as nice as this actually. So let's do the Grand Prix all over. And yeah, you can consider this a bit of extra footage. Behind the scenes or whatever. And yeah, there's people are basically divided into two camps. Some would not mess with the graphics at all. They just want to have the experience as was on the original console. I prefer that. I prefer to play these games on the CRT because they look great, because the CRT pretty much actually does what you have to do with the system now if you want to run it at a 4K resolution, for example, or on an LCD, or you know, a high-end modern TV set, because yeah, it just looks like crap basically if you use it on the original resolution. Without any filtering or scan lines being added or something like that. And I must say, I was looking forward to getting this game on the PlayStation 5. I got it, but I was actually quite disappointed by the level of yeah, of how it works. I mean, I don't think it's actually possible to have the graphics look like they did on the original system. So it does have some sort of depth of field thing going on, but the texture wobbles have all completely disappeared. So a lot of things are added to the geometry processing. It does look not as busy or wobbly as it did and originally, and with the bilinear texture filtering, the blockiness of the textures is pretty much gone. So this is running at 8. It's below 4K, but it's I think it's as good as you are going to get a PlayStation title to run. And I did select the screen hack, but I don't think it actually is working. I'm actually quite curious how the other tracks look. I'm not sure if I'm keen on the lines and the fuzzy look of the buildings. There is a bit of a softness to the graphics, but probably is because of the otherwise the jumps in the geometry being too large, so they sort of. It's actually funny how you can actually see now that the textures and the colors on the building, when they come into view more, you actually see that there's some sort of dynamic changes taking place. So what they did in reality is being very smart about using the PlayStation's geometry processors, because whenever objects were further away, they lessened the textures, but also the amount of polygons used. Yeah, it's. I think I'd really prefer the original graphics. I may actually in a bit turn towards the original graphics and show you that. But I want to see this Wonder Hill, because this actually I love the golden hour, and this actually pretty much is top-notch golden hour. You know, the sunset or the sunrise, but this is the sunset, and the way they've baked in the light streaming across everything is actually quite wonderful.
3, 2, 1, go!
So yeah, it almost looks, it almost has this Nintendo 64 type of feel with the bilinear filtering of the textures and also the backdrop. It was heavily used, that technique, on the Nintendo 64. And I guess when setting the resolution so high with the textures, it really shows the relatively simple geometry that was used for all the character models and stuff. But with solid shading and the use of colors on the textures, they actually managed to create something that actually looks like there's more geometry than there actually is. That actually is a technique, or something similar happens when you create bitmap graphics on the CRT. The scan lines and the contrast thing that a CRT tube does when it renders colors next to each other, it creates a subpixel. It creates additional information, and that's the reason why a fair few of these old bitmap games on old systems, they actually look worse on an LCD, because the LCD screen doesn't do that trickery. Even if you introduce scan lines, it won't work. So there's games on the Commodore 64 and on the Spectrum and other 8-bit systems that actually use this subpixel thing to add more into the sprite data than there actually was. So a square can look like a circle almost on the CO2. And perhaps the bilinear filtering thing has gone a bit overboard because it is rather fuzzy looking. I've been playing a ton of original PlayStation, both on my real console but also a lot on the MiMister. And the MiMister is an FPGA project that has a lot of different FPGA cores, field programmable gate array, that actually is able to mimic electronically the circuitry of a real system. And the systems that you are capable of emulating or redesigning in this hardware programming grid array. Oh no, I'm not going to be second, right? Come on. One. No, second. Okay, let's scale back the graphics to normal settings. I want to shut down, yes. So, enhancements, restore defaults, yes. So, emulation, display, Vulkan, adapter, that, VSync, aspect ratio, auto, game native, linear upscaling, OSD messages, enhancements, no enhancements, texture filtering, downsampling disabled, dithering, what not disable interlacing, and that is something that probably is done. Oh well, let's see. So this basically will make the emulator run the game pretty much at stock settings. And of course, the best way to actually achieve this is to actually fire up the MiMister and have the game run over a capture. But I'm lazy. So let's start the first two races and see how it looks with the dithering. And actually, I believe the closest thing you could actually get to no. Can I? No. Can I set the let me see. Can I set the no analog mode? Oh well. Let's see. I wanted to turn on the software rendering, but
Welcome to the Real Racing Roots 99 Grand.
So the 2D graphics pretty much look the same because they are not really enhanced. But of course the diagonals and are all much more coarse, and also the 2D graphics of that use the perspective scaling. Now I don't know if it comes across in the video. I hopefully it does. Because because YouTube really doesn't want to show the dithering, but if I keep it at the resolution of 4K, you can actually see on the front shield window, and the front window shield, you can actually see that there's perhaps 3 different shades of gray, and the rest is filled in with dithering. It's actually funny because you would think that having to draw all these dithering patterns would also cost the CPU, but actually when you have a screen render at a 16-bit resolution, for example, drawing each pixel on the screen takes less computational power and takes less memory. Takes up less memory, so it's actually faster. These days computers are so fast you don't actually notice the difference, but back in the day it really mattered. It really mattered a lot. So actually this was something that quite a fair few so basically this is a simulation of what the game looks like on a real machine, and you can actually see that the texture and the geometry wobbles aren't actually that noticeable, because the whole screen is just, you know, the whole screen is pretty much changing all the time with of course pixels just moving around the screen, and it's not a bad thing because the game runs very smoothly and it's just what the game does. So the geometry inadequacies pretty much are nullified by the resolution, you know. I mean, why bother rendering all this with more perfect geometry when there's no need for it? And you see on the road, you see these dither patterns. Now, I've seen these patterns on the PlayStation 2, and I've also observed them happening on the PlayStation 3. Although less, but it still is an option I guess developers can use. I've not seen it so much on the PlayStation 4 and 5, but I reckon this dithering thing is still present, still a possibility in hardware, which could come into play when you want to do some fancy stuff like ray tracing, for example, perhaps. If you do that with at a lower bitmap, a lower bit field, bit depth, it might actually be possible to do that kind of stuff faster and just do the dither thing to have it look acceptable. But yeah, that dithering only works well on CRTs, and it does less well on the modern TVs, the modern flat screen TVs. So basically, if you really want to experience what it looked like, you should actually observe a CRT running this game. That's and I can honestly say that my Sony 13-inch Trinitron, which actually is stored in the attic right now because I'm using a larger JVC, is actually the best way to experience it. And I may actually do a bit of screen capturing, yeah, and now the Wander Hill, because I really want to see the golden hour again, but then in original resolution.
Real Racing Roots 99 in Wander Hill. 3, 2, 1.
Now this setting, to have this setting on the PlayStation 5, for example, to play it like this, you know, as closest to the original as possible, would have been great, but for some reason I can't find a setting where you can dial down the resolution and just use software rendering for that matter. So I believe the only setting is with a higher resolution. So, and that sort of does away with the magic, because I think even without the trickery of the CRT, the lower amount of pixels on the screen also creates this illusion of something being there that isn't, you know. It's it all looks a bit organic in some way. Now, and imagine this screen with CRT scan lines on top of it. You know, everything being slightly more fuzzy. It's just an amazing, slightly out of focus experience, but it's not actually, because a lot of things will be in perfect focus, you know. A lot of the 2D geometry will be in perfect focus, as well as the more defined objects that aren't dittered but have strong contrast lines. Yeah. And this running at this resolution, I think, does the game the most justice. But trying to have this rendered correctly on YouTube without it becoming a blocky mess is something else entirely, because a lot of the capture software and capture devices, they're not keen on static, which I used in the last video, but they're also not very keen on the dithering. In the air you can actually see the dithering taking place, and yeah, it does have something deliberate, you know, something pixel artists would also do, you know. This dithering on the Amiga, a lot of fancy graphics, emulating more colors than the Amiga could actually render in games and stuff, would actually use dithering, and it has some sort of deliberate artistic vibe to it because of that. But it's just the hardware doing it. So yeah. The controllers, especially the DualShock analog controllers, the way the original PlayStation looks, you know, this box, this fanless box, actually was very quiet. You only heard the CD spin. That also was a big bonus for me when getting the PlayStation back in the day, because, you know, I'd been building and I'd been flipping computers, and you know, I think I did away with my I might have done away with my Voodoo 3 at this point, or may have held on to it, but yeah, I was moving into NVIDIA cards, and it was just it was just very expensive to keep up with all the technological advancements. And in a way, I think that because the PlayStation used a much lower resolution, they did quite a fair few tricks and trickery and fancy stuff on the system that would not have been possible if the system used a higher resolution. Now, I think that is something that early 3D PC gaming had a bit of trouble with, because back then already a lot of monitors would be 1024 by 768, so basically almost like 720p graphics, you know. And 640 by 480 was pretty much what the Voodoo 1 was best at rendering at 800 by 600, you know. So yeah, the higher resolutions used in the games actually well taxed the hardware a fair bit more. Now the lower resolution also works very well on this, you know, it's I mean, you might say, hey, it looks like it was built with Lego. But yeah, I mean, it does look great even at this resolution. And I'm actually quite curious if I'm able to have the actually quite curious if I'm able to have the game being captured properly, and also if it's possible to upload it to YouTube. I did do a review of this about 10 years ago, and that was basically around the time where YouTube went from 360p video to 480p video. I mean, for the longest time we just had very atrocious blocky, well, it wasn't atrocious, it was true video, and you know, YouTube really did create this whole new webcam vlog video sharing thing that is just unparalleled. And I'm actually I feel very fortunate to have been on this platform for as long as I have. This channel is my second channel. My original channel that also featured gaming content pretty much was, I created that around, well, day one almost. So I've been using YouTube for a long time. Now, I had something crazy happening to me, and that also happened to Alan Stewart. He had a copyright strike on a fair few of his videos, and that was a bit of intro that I created for him. And I used a bit of software that actually provides very nice templates and music for free to use on social media. You can actually, they allow you to actually do it for clients or do it for friends, and they actually obtain the rights to use that video and all the elements inside as their own, do with it as they please. The only stipulation basically in the license is that you are not allowed to just not modify the template and just upload the template, which is a bit daft to do anyway, because the template itself just is an example, but the example isn't, how do you say it, it's a description of what you can put in certain text areas and stuff. So it's not like something you would actually want to put in front of a video unmodified, or at the end of a video for that matter. And also they also are very clear that you cannot use the raw elements outside of the application as a template for creating other apps that use similar things. So yeah, basically they say, well, if you use it with the app, whatever you create with it, you can do with it as you please. But there's this Middle Eastern media company that flagged Alan's videos, and I wondered what would happen if I upload a video containing two of these things I did, and I have the rights to do so, and actually Alan does have the rights to do so as well. And it's only like a couple of seconds even, but that causes the video to demonetize or not be available. It doesn't really give you a copyright strike, but you are at the mercy of that company. If they decide that they have the rights to use that imagery over you, despite the license being there. I posted something about it on the community post, the community tab on the channel. Then yeah, basically you're toast. They get to monetize or get to place their stamp on the video. There are penalties for false copyright claiming, but there's also penalties for disputing. And if you dispute, I don't think, well, they get to keep all the proceedings of that video. So, yeah, and my main thing isn't to monetize all my videos and get rich, because the views won't ever amount to anything substantial. So, but I'm not keen on a company claiming something that they may not have a right to. They may have, you know, but perhaps they bought the assets from that app creator, but then the app creator should have taken the app out of the Apple Store. It's an iOS application. It runs on iPhones and tablets, and yeah, it provides you with a very nice, professional looking intro and extra, and yeah, you don't have to fork out a ton of money for a professional graphics designer to create your intros. And yeah, if you're not hooked up to a group of people that actually provides nice intros for you. I mean, I'm part of Retro Lim, associated with Retro Lim, so I can actually use the intro, the lead-in, and modify that slightly. But if you don't, if you're just a small YouTuber, then having your videos open up like a news broadcast or something like that, or just have a very fancy YouTube, subscribe to my channel or Facebook thing, that actually is actually very nice to be able to do. And it sort of balances out the out of focus webcam video, you know, low frame rate videos that people used to use, because this app is actually as old as almost as the low quality video that YouTube would normally provide. And yeah, it probably is some sort of automatic system these days, because a while back this copyright system and strikes like these were actually taken advantage of in a sinister way, because there would be these groups of people that would just falsely flag copyrights, and then the proceedings of monetized videos would automatically immediately start going to the claimant, even if they were falsely claiming. Now, you could dispute, and then you would almost always win, but you would have lost the money that you would have earned otherwise if you got to keep that money if you're monetizing. But now YouTube is actually using an intermediary service that actually grabs hold of all the money and actually turns it over to the one that wins this dispute in the end. So abusing the copyright system like that there's very little incentive to do that now, because, well, you know, you can't scrape off early earnings from monetized videos like that anymore, as a criminal mind. Wow, I'm having lots of issues with the car behind me. Yeah, it's a final stretch. Yeah, so I'm curious. A lot of these automated copyright strike things, they often go unnoticed, and I did appeal. I did appeal, and I stated that I have the rights to use that and stuff. And it's actually in the video itself, also in the description. But most often, also the criminals, they would just let the 30-day window for them to respond just go lapse, and then automatically the one disputing the copyright claim would actually win. But of course, with 30 days of money earning lost, so that actually was a big thing. It's actually quite interesting that a company like YouTube seems to be surprised by all these things that malicious minds actually come up with. Yeah, and funny, even a couple of days ago, Adrian Black, he had his one of his YouTube channels, got shut down because it was flagged as impersonating Adrian, and Adrian had very little means to get it back, and actually him being a larger channel, even though he claims to be a small channel, but he's a large channel. There's more ways to get noticed if you appeal something like that, because yeah, not just showing off. I'm real-time talking here. And sometimes I'm a bit distracted because I have to focus on the game a bit more. But yeah, I'm very much capable of playing a game and winning it whilst doing this talk. And now, of course, I'm on a tangent and almost forgot what I was talking about. Oh yeah, Adrian Black. His yeah, and the troubles he described getting it back. Yeah, it's a combination of an automated system with very little human interaction possibilities, because, well, if they would have people dealing with all the and I mean, YouTube is huge, and the number of users is huge, and people running into all sorts of issues that are small is huge. So if they have to put human resources at work, actually have a lot of interaction with the users, then probably would be very expensive. So they rely on algorithms and automated things to just sort out most of the stuff. And if it happens to a bigger YouTuber, or someone has an online social media following that can actually make them notice, then they will intervene. But most of the smaller channels would just be toast like that. But then this could also be, it was a community strike, and the community strikes can still be misused, because a malicious person can file, can just flag a video for something like that, and then you can actually end up with a community strike because of the automated algorithms, and perhaps they are using AI for that. But yeah, that can go wrong, of course, and so sometimes you are just stuck in this weird enemy of the system, enemy of the state, that Will Smith movie where something happens and the system is actually just working against him, or that Sandra Bullock clip movie where she's a hacker, and also her whole online life, her whole life is actually destroyed. I think the best thing to do is just to not take it personally, and also to decide that YouTube is a main platform to earn your money on, or Twitch, or something like that. Well, it's a bit of a gamble, because you're always at the mercy of a company and the decisions they make, and especially if they rely on many automated services. And perhaps something like Vimeo or Floatplane from Linus Tech Linus Media Group. That could be a more, how do you say that, reliable source, because I don't think Linus well, the floodplain content is actually largely monitored by all sorts of algorithms. Perhaps they have them in check, but I guess humans keeping tabs on things is actually the way to go. But yeah, YouTube has just grown too large, and of course you will have false positives because no system is perfect. And yeah, the thing is that they're so strict. Of course, you don't want a malicious mind to create a YouTube channel and spout all sorts of hate stuff, because that that happens also. And, so you do want to have the means to just shut down a channel, I guess, because you don't want to, have false news and all sorts of stuff spreading out of control. But there's also a downside to that. So, and I'm just using YouTube as a means to entertain myself and a means to be somewhat creative, just making a video or two, and just be in contact with the viewer, share my hobby, and yeah, I just can't help it. I just want to play, and I'm slow, so I probably won't make it because I would have had to there he is. Well, I might still be able to. It's a very fast car. I think what is appealing to me is that you can actually learn some of the moves, just like you would with a Pac-Man game, because there's quite a few scripted things going on with the cars and stuff. Of course, when you encounter them, they do interact with overtaking it. But yeah, this final car that you have to battle is always the same car. Unless, of course, you perform much worse and the final car isn't the final car. Yeah, and these airplanes landing, and you just have this hint of an airfield. It's not rendered. There's no airfield there. It's just the plane landing on, performing a maneuver on something that looks like a landing strip. But that's just it. You get away with stuff like that by using a very dark track, having all sorts of pixels doing their thing, without having to have all these assets in place. And of course, you never see something like that happen. Well, almost never. Because basically, if you glitch in a 3D game these days, sometimes even if you fall through the floor, for example, sometimes even the assets are created in such a way that even the invisible bits are actually rendered or are viewable, because they're just like. I think what I found very amazing here is that you have a working rear view mirror, and I think the first Ridge Racer that did that may have been Rage Racer, which came just before this. It didn't use Goro shading, and it shows. It's a much bleaker looking affair. Here you have basically almost a feeling that there's real lighting going on, and that the objects themselves have a surface that interacts with the environment and a bit of light. And the models just don't look flat. They they look like, because of that, it looks like they have more geometry than there actually is. But if you check out Ridge Racer, which I may actually do a video on as well, because I'm actually quite keen on that, then you actually see that the use of color and shading actually really does a lot, because the complexity of the scenes in Ridge Racer is actually very similar to that used in this game. And perhaps sometimes actually in certain cases they would actually use less geometry, because they can use the colors and the shading to fake some days. But yeah, there's trees lining the road and the shades of them on the road. Of course, it's all baked in. Even this, you know, this is. I mean, if you have an environment where light seemingly is present, that does a lot to the sense of reality or the immersion that you experience. And I guess that this game, because of the way it controls, the way it is presented very smoothly, and the way it looks and the way it sounds, that combination, yeah, I should have overtaken it, because now I will have to live with the dire consequence of, oh, it's not far ahead, so it's still possible to come first, but you really have to overtake it and stay ahead. And oh, again, that is this super fast Pac-Man car. So you really have to drive without making any mistakes like this, running into the... But I still have a chance. It's yep. Now if I can stay ahead and not screw up drifting into the side of the road, we do these upcoming two rather steep bends correctly. Oh, I'm too slow. Perhaps it's over. No, I'm all right. I think actually when I'm playing this, you know, with the pixelated look, it feels a lot more like playing the real thing, and my muscle memory works better, and I think the whole system responds a bit faster, because, you know, an emulator having to render everything at 4K and do all that geometry, you know, there's bound to be some more control lag introduced. So now, yeah, I'm actually I've been gaming, and I guess leaving now without trying to do the final 6 laps would just be ludicrous. So I guess I'm just gonna go. Now you have 4 teams that you can select. There's no way to actually modify your cars like in the other Ridge Racer series, and what's actually quite interesting is that each of these 4 racing teams adds something different, something extra to the game. So playing for the different teams actually has a bit of replay value. And just using at the 480, I think it's a 480p resolution, it really doesn't matter that much because everything is pixelated, you know, and I'm a sucker for pixels. That's something that, yeah, that's very true.
Real Racing Roots 99 in.
And I remember I remember the searchlights and actually the way that there's cones of lights coming from your headlights, and actually there's ovals of light from the floodlights shining on the road. It's actually very interesting. And I guess it's really weird, but the pixelated look of everything on the original console actually gives it a much more cohesive look and also a much more cohesive experience. You know, everything is pixelated, not just the 2D information on the screen, but everything. Everything jumps around and everything is pixelated. So yeah, now this really is something you really have to, if you encounter an opponent, you really have to basically overtake it, because if you don't, you'll miss out. There's six laps, and you really have to overtake it and overtake. And if you just don't, then you'll have no space to just no leeway. And I'm actually getting dangerously close to having no leeway and not being able to finish first, but possibly. Because I'm over halfway and I still have to overtake. Oh, this is not going well. Yeah, so I'm not gonna finish this. No, absolutely not, because I'm again overtaken by another car. Yeah, of course, what is missing from this capture, of course, is the way it looks on the CRT, because that really is something else. It really adds something more to it, because the blockiness goes away and it gets a softer look and it becomes very organic, actually. That's something that, yeah, I might still be able to. No. There's like 3 I have to overtake, but there's no way this is going to work. But I'll be very surprised. And of course, I'm just distracted because I'm talking. My accent will probably go more Dutch or more Corks. I'm stretching out. No. Even the fireworks look nicer at lower resolution. Better luck next time. Yeah. Okay, let's quit the game and let's see if I can go back to being me. Yes. So yeah, a bit of an extra look at how Ridge Racer 4 can actually be maxed out to the max, and also how it looks when you play it pretty much standard. I mean, it looks the same if you use just the last stretch I played. Basically, it looks the same as if you would use PlayStation, one of these PlayStation Mini systems, hooked up over HDMI. Basically is very similar, and it's a shame that the PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 aren't capable of doing this PGXP texture geometry correction, because that would actually enhance it enough for a lot of gamers. I guess a lot of modern gamers who have no personal experience with the old systems will probably just, it's not important, and that's of course what Sony counts on, I mean, people not wanting to play the old games anymore, because why should you? Anyways, thanks for watching. Mark signing out. I'll be back with another video soon. Ta-ta!